Embark on a journey of faith and grace with Jesus Prayer and Therapy. Goodbye, boring Mondays. Welcome to your dose of Jesus Prayer and Therapy, where you start your week right. With your hosts, Liz and Vanessa. So welcome. We're happy you're here. We're happy you're joining us for our second episode titled
The Joy and Suffering.
Yes, which is, it sounds like it's not possible, but we were going to dig into the story of someone that I called my amiga in heaven, my bestie in heaven, Chiara Corbella Petrillo. We have a great picture of her here. And her story just touches me in so many different ways. And I'm just excited to share her story. I think it's a very inspiring story. And I know that I've gifted this book to a few of my friends, and you're one of them. And yes, I'm so glad that you like
so much. I feel that the book came to me in the perfect moment too.
Same.
Yeah.
Same. So I think, anyways,
everybody should read it, by the way. Order your book now.
There's no way we can capture everything, the fullness of the story, because there's so many little details and yeah. So Chiara Corbella, in Spanish, it's called Nacemos para no morir nunca.
And English, it's A Witness to Joy.
Yes. So let's just dig in. Do a little kind of rundown of her life. She was born in Rome, Italy, in the 9th of January, 1984. So she was an Italian woman. At around 18, she took a pilgrimage to Medjugorje. Medjugorje is known to have a lot of Marian apparitions till this day, actually. Mm-hmm. And she just was there with her sister, Elisa. And the only chair available during lunch was the one
right next to who was soon going to be his husband, or
Enrico.
Not soon, right? 6 years
after. Yeah, Enrico. Yeah, that's where they met, and then they started a 6-year relationship.
Yes, that soon, like the last couple of, they had a rocky relationship, right?
To say the least.
Mm-hmm. And they ended up breaking up,
a few times, I think.
Yes, but the last time she had to learn how to let him go. Mm-hmm. And I think that is also where Father Rito comes in.
Yeah.
She meets him at the...
Yeah, she was struggling, right, with her, I guess, with just letting things go. Mm-hmm. So she took a course in Assisi in Italy, and that's where she meets Father Rito, which is a huge role in this whole story.
Right.
But yeah, Father Rito becomes her spiritual guide.
And kind of tells her, like, you got to let that man go.
Yeah.
And she, I think that it's important, like, that he made her understand that the man or husband that God had for her would be for her. Mm-hmm. And she found a lot of peace in hearing that from him, and finally was able to let him go.
Yeah. And I think the process of her letting go was like learning to trust God, right? It was like a test for her almost. Like, okay, I really want this man to be my husband, and I thought or think that he's the one, but things aren't working out. I need to stop forcing control, kind of, and just let it be your will. And then finally, like, peace overcame her in her life. But this peace, right? This peace was then attractive to Enrico.
Yes, where he comes.
What's different?
And like, ¿qué mosca le picó?
Sí. Yeah.
Yeah, so he comes back to her, wanting to give her something that she forgot years later. And she makes that very clear in the book.
Like, yeah. I think it's months later.
Months later?
Yeah. Okay. I think, they couldn't stay away from each other. But yeah, I think it's like a few months later. And then I think they took a pilgrimage, Camino Santiago, creo. They took a trip together, like a spiritual trip. Mm-hmm. And Father Rito, I remember, would tell them, during this walking pilgrimage, just ask God to heal the wounds that you have caused each other. And that's where Enrico proposed to her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
I'm like, man, he was ready, huh?
yeah.
Yeah.
Because at this point, he wanted also that, like, there was just something now new in her. And he was like, I'm in for this ride. And he also became, Father Vito became a spiritual director for him. For now, for both of them. Yeah. So then they marry.
And then
In
SEC. Maybe like even she became pregnant quickly, right? Maybe
yeah.
a honeymoon.
They married in 2008.
In 2008. And she becomes pregnant with her firstborn.
Yeah, Maria Gracia.
Maria Gracia.
That's a cute name. Maria Gracia Leticia. Yeah, she came pregnant right away.
Yes. And when she had her appointment for Maria Grazia, Enrico was at getting
dental procedure,
getting some type of treatment for himself. So he was unable to be there with her, but that's where she found out that she had the sickness.
Yeah, and her baby had her. Oh gosh, this is our practice, but it's more encephalopathy. I butchered it.
Anencephaly.
Basically, the baby was missing her school.
Yes. And she kept this away from it.
Yeah. So the doctors told her, right, that the baby's missing the skull. Why keep this baby?
Yes.
Why give birth to a baby that's going to die a few minutes after birth? So the doctors became very pushy of abortion, like right away. But instantly, Chiara is pro-life and said, absolutely not. I'm going to keep this baby. But absolutely, that's where you said, that because Enrico wasn't there, like now she had to give the news to him.
Right. And I think she was skeptical, right? Because she wasn't sure that Enrico was going to be on board with going through with the pregnancy, even though they gave Maria Grazia
a death sentence. Yeah. And she really struggled with this. She really battled. It describes how she was talking to God very like, oh, what's going on? But she then contemplates an image of Mary, and she finds her consolation in Mary, saying, wow, like Mary also became pregnant with, a baby that was sentenced to death. And that peace just flooded her.
I think that kind of gave her strength too.
Yes, like Mary could do it, Yeah, that's right. So then she tells Enrico,
and he's on board.
Yes,
100%. No,
she calls that the first miracle.
Yeah,
this is the first miracle that he was absolutely. We're going to keep her. We're going to accompany her as much as we can. Yeah. So then Maria Gracia is born.
She's born.
Yeah.
She has 30 minutes with her. Right.
And the Come Save All Father Vito is always on call and comes and baptizes Maria Gracia. And they have like a beautiful 30 minutes with her.
She describes it as the most joyful 30 minutes of her life, which I can't imagine, right?
I can't. And how?
I would be devastated. Those would be like the most devastating, painful 30 minutes to think of, if, like to put myself in her place. And people also describe the Maria Grazia funeral as very, very joyful,
experiencing heaven,
right? And then I think that's when they start getting attention, right? Enrico and
people started becoming attracted to them because it made no sense. How is a couple burying their newborn child and have such peace and joy? No tiene lógica at all. But they were invited to give their testimony at, I think, their local parish or some Catholic church in Italy. And this testimony is on YouTube still. So you can find this testimony on YouTube, where Chiara herself tells the story about how, I think the theme was being pro-life, and how she said, if I would have aborted my child, I would have gone to know her and experience the beauty of her birth, the beauty of having those 30 minutes, right, with her. It would have been a tragedy. It would have been a burden that I would have carried the rest of my life.
Right.
So it's just beautiful how they described, that they were so happy that they accompanied their daughter till the very end, till hasta que Dios la llamó. Y como Enrico dice, I love how Enrico says, what is the tragedy in my daughter dying if she was born ready to heaven? And we know that she's in heaven, right? Because she was baptized and there's no tragedy. So the point of life is to make it to heaven. My daughter was born ready.
Born ready.
Wow.
The way they saw things,
their perspective.
Beautiful and inspiring, honestly.
Yeah. And then shortly after,
she becomes pregnant with David.
Baby number 2
on the way. And he also gets diagnosed with his organs weren't well formed, and he was not gonna have legs. He didn't have the same legs. And with David, the same thing.
Yeah.
Doctors wanted her to abort him. There's no point in carrying this baby if he's not gonna make it. And again, they decide no, we're gonna take this baby until God calls him. And that's what they did. Of course, they had to find their doctor. Her name was
Daniela. Daniela also becomes a huge part of this story because she was an OBGYN, but she respected their decision.
Their decision to,
because a lot of doctors didn't want to treat her.
Proceed.
They're like, no, there's no point. We're not going to be involved with this. This baby has no future. What's the point? But Daniela was the first one that said, I'll support you. I'll take care of you. So she becomes a big piece to this story.
So they find a doctor. They go through the pregnancy. I remember she talks about that they programmed a date for David to be born. And
how hard that was.
Yeah.
That's deciding the day of his birth, but the day of his death as well. Yeah.
And that didn't sit well with her because she was like, God only decides that. God decides when he is born and when he leaves. And I thought that was a beautiful turnout, in my opinion, because God truly decides.
I think they had booked it, right?
They had booked it. Yes. Cesarean birth. And she didn't want to, but it ended up being where God confirmed it to her. This is the day that he's supposed to be born.
Yeah. So she started having contractions.
Yes.
Yeah. That same day that they had programmed.
That same day.
But she gave birth naturally. And the doctors were, I think, astonished because they're like, he doesn't have legs. He's missing. There's no way you're going to be able to have a natural birth. And
what do you know?
God said otherwise.
God's like, you thought. And I think a lot of doctors at this point are now intrigued, right? Because now they're like, how could she be having a natural birth? There's no way.
Yeah. Yep. And so again, Father Vito comes running in a motorcycle, last minute urgent, and baptizes Davide. They take pictures and he passes shortly after. And they have another funeral. And I just can't imagine, instead of planning a baby shower or planning, getting a crib ready and getting things ready, you're planning a funeral, all these months before. I've thought about that. So I'm like, Chiara and Enrico were planning a funeral.
Yeah. Instead of a baby, you're right.
But they, again, spoke of another angel that they were able to accompany in heaven. And they felt so fortunate to have that. And they said, I think a dear friend of them told them, Maria probably in heaven told God that, those would be good parents to send Davide to. So they're like, yeah. So then shortly after that comes baby number 3.
Baby number 3, Francesco.
Yeah.
And I forget, it's when she was pregnant with him that
I think a few weeks or months in.
A condition in her tongue, right?
Yeah, I think she noticed just a little scab or something, and then she goes to the doctor. Doesn't really think much of it.
They do a procedure, and it comes back cancerous.
Yeah, they told her this is cancer.
Yeah,
and she says, "I'm not gonna do anything that's gonna harm my child." So I think in this biopsy they tried to cut out as much as they could out. And they said the next thing would be like aggressive treatment, because this is a very like aggressive form of cancer. But she says, if this treatment is going to harm my child, I'm not going to do it. And so she postpones.
She postponed.
Second part of the treatment.
And again, doctors are like not wanting her to postpone because like, how could you be putting someone else's life before yours, right? And that's what she did.
They even suggested to have the baby preborn, or what do you call it?
Premature.
Yeah, to have him at like 7 months or something. And she says, nope, we're going full term because
God decides.
I want to make sure that the baby grows and develops as much as he can, etc. So she basically postpones it all.
Right.
And Francesco's born,
and he's like healthy, beautiful baby.
Yeah, healthy baby. So right after that, yeah.
Before Francesco was born, also, I don't know if you remember, her family and pressured her to have like a test done to see why she was having
pathology.
Yeah, pathology, to see if why she was having these kind of pregnancies with children being born this way, and everything came back normal.
Yeah, the genetics were fine. There wasn't anything scientifically that they can say, well, medically, this is what's going on.
Right, and Francesco was
the proof of that. Yeah, that's right. So as soon as baby's born, she goes into surgery, and after surgery begins, chemo and all the treatments that she was supposed to obtain. And during this time, she couldn't swallow, so she started being fed through a G tube. And months after, they have to wait for the results, see if it worked and whatnot. So Holy Week of, I believe it was 2012, it's determined that
she's a terminal patient.
Yeah, she called this form of cancer, or in her life, El Dragón, right? The dragon of her life. Yeah. And I just learned this kind of fun fact, that this picture of her with her eye patch and this just kind of like bright smile, I think that it's like the biggest kind of famous picture of her, was taken 10 years after they told her she was terminal, that there was nothing else they can do for her. So
when you told me that fun fact, I looked at the picture. I'm like, how could her smile be so like joyful? 10 days after knowing she was a terminal patient.
It again doesn't make sense.
It
doesn't. It does not. So basically, she says, well, I'm going to take a last trip to Medjugorje, because Medjugorje held like a really special place in her heart. So she goes to Medjugorje with her husband. She invites like a bunch of people.
Yeah, she invites family, friends.
Yes. And they go to Medjugorje. But I believe that she doesn't go to Medjugorje seeking health. She goes to seek for peace. And she is practically giving advice to everybody that went on this trip with her, with I think it was like 100-something people that joined her.
Yes.
Right? And she's hands rosaries to everybody and says, Mary, do what Mary says, follow son Jesus. And prayer is like a huge thing that got her through all of these challenges. So prayer was key. A lot of people were always constantly praying with them and all of that. But that pretty much in a summary, she died in June of 2012. So they gave her a diagnosis that she was terminal Holy Week. So I'm assuming that was around March, April. And then she died June. So very few weeks after that. So her death was June of 2012, which was not that long ago. She like lived in our time.
Yeah. Like we were born already.
Yeah. But there's just so much, so many beautiful things that are said throughout this whole process, right? All these little details in the story that just kind of, you have to read it to fully grasp everything. But I love how her husband Enrico, it also plays like a huge part in saying, how can I be mad if my wife is going with the man that loves her more than I do? So it's like just, wow, that's impressive to me.
Yeah. Do you have a brother?
Enrico, be over here, looking for your brother. Yeah, and I think that there's the most beautiful prayer that I love of her is, Lord, I don't understand, but I accept this. And to me, it's like, yeah, she is the perfect example of surrender and letting God decide what is going to happen in your life or branch out in your life. And I love how she allows God to change the plans of her life. Like she just welcomes whatever's coming.
God's will.
Mm-hmm.
And she welcomes it with joy.
Yeah, she does. And I think the story doesn't make sense unless you see it with the eyes of faith.
Right.
That's it. Like, if you don't have the eyes of faith, this doesn't make sense to anybody.
Right.
Right? It's just the divine mystery of how she embraced the invitation of joining Jesus to the cross. To me, that's really what she did, is that this was a cross that was given to her. And instead of her fighting it, she just learned to love this cross and join Jesus in that passion, which I think a lot of times, I don't know, for me in my early stages, my early, fully coming back and wanting to serve God, to me that was, I don't know, that life's not going to be perfect, but you kind of assume that you're only going to get the everything's, going to be good and the good stuff. And, you're serving the God that does miracles and the God that's a healer and the God that is, all of these things. But I think for me, I missed to also learn that we also have to follow and imitate Christ in his passion,
Right.
in that invitation to pain. And I believe Chiara used her pain to sanctify herself. And there's like a mystery thing that goes on with pain,
Right.
that pain can bring out beauty in us. And it's learning to not resist the pain. Especially we live in a culture that's very microwave, very, I want things now, and something hurts, I need pain medication instantly, I'm not going to do this. We run away from pain.
And we look at God as the God of miracles too, right?
Mm-hmm.
So whenever there is pain or wherever there's a sickness like cancer, like Chiara had, we ask for the miracle.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that. But that piece of accepting God's will, if perhaps healing is not in the works, it's not in the plan, to accept that God is still good and God is still working things for your good and for your behalf, right?
And he has a great plan for you.
Yes. And I think, again, that prayer where it says, God, I don't understand, but I accept this. That's where that comes in. And a lot of times we go crazy and like that, I want to understand. Nos volvemos locos. Like, we want to know how, when, where, what are you going to do this? And okay, if healing's not the answer, then tell me why. Tell me the whole details. I want to know.
Yes.
But it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
Right? It just doesn't work that way. So that's just kind of the beauty of Chiara's story for me, is how she dances this pain with God and just simple yeses to this, everything that is inviting. And I also think it's so beautiful how God really helped her the entire time. Como Dios no la dejó sola, right? Father Vito, again, a big role. Once she was like really sick, he would celebrate Mass in her house, would leave the Blessed Sacrament there for her to spend time adoring him. So all these little things, I'm like, wow, all the people that were going to her house, doing rosaries, praying with her. Like, it's just, to me, it's all this journey of apoyándola.
Like companionship.
Como que no la dejó cargar la cruz sola.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like, we're in this together, basically. So I just think that I don't know, that to me is como dice el libro, como santa envidia.
But el amor que Dios le tuvo, right? Like God loved her so much to give her these graces.
This was the first saint story that I recognized it in myself. I'm like, I am low-key jealous. How can I be jealous of someone suffering?
Right.
Yeah. It's like a holy jealousy.
I could relate to you in that.
Yeah.
Because sometimes, or especially with situations in my life of pain, and then I this book came to me in a situation of pain in my life, and just like reading this and comparing my pain to hers or my situation to hers, I was kind of like, well, my pain isn't as bad. Well, why can't it be that bad? So I can purify myself while I'm suffering.
It makes you want to suffer for God.
For God.
It's trippy. It is so trippy. But because we saw in the story how she experienced God's love, the more her suffering increased, the more love she felt by God. Y como que se antoja. Right?
Yes.
It's
se antoja.
No, what it is to be loved by God in that way.
Well, and to love God back that way.
Yes. And another thing, V, was her funeral. It's on YouTube for anybody that wants to watch. But I watched her funeral after I, finished the book and everything. And I have never seen such a joyful funeral.
Right.
But empezar, her husband is playing the guitar. He's playing the song that he wrote for her and that he played for her the day of their wedding, right? When she was coming down the altar. And to see now her husband is playing that same song
of joy.
Yeah, as she's being brought into the church, for her funeral mass. And just to see people were like clapping and cheering her on. And I just kind of como me imaginé like everybody was just saying, in a way, like good job, Chiara, like you did it,
like kind of like, yeah, like good job.
Yeah, or like this. So I imagine also like this, if she made it straight to heaven, all the people just clapping, like, yay, you did it, you're here. So again, I've never seen such a joyful funeral.
A beautiful funeral. I remember you sharing that video with me, and I also watched it, and I think that everything that she went through prepared her for her death. Starting with, with her relationship and dating Enrico, she had to let go of him and learn to love God and trust God.
Yeah.
So I think that was the beginning of God preparing her for her death, for that moment.
Little by little, right?
Little by little. Because that's already hard enough to let go. Because she was almost sure Enrico was going to be her husband, and to to let go.
She let it go, yeah.
Yeah.
And then with the death of both of her children.
Back to back. She lost 2 children back to back. And I think through that, she was able to let go of the fear of death.
Yes. Because she saw how peacefully both her children died, right? And it was like a glimpse into heaven for her. Yeah. Yeah. So those deaths, and she says it in the story, like she says how that prepared her for it.
That's so powerful. How we could look at her story and, maybe some of us have grieved or will grieve over a loved one, but just motivation to try to meet
with that our home is not here. Our home is in, heaven. That's where we're heading. So, and then again with the cancer, right?
Right.
Then the cancer again, having to let go again.
Girl, she had to let go of her husband and her son, Frankie.
Yeah. But all of this was just every little by little, God was
preparing her.
It was all leading to, and then such a holy death that she had. So the story spread all over, it is worldwide at this point. So the Vatican did open a case for her. She is declared now a servant of God. So it's the first of 4 steps for somebody to be declared a saint. So we got to keep, praying for, so that one day she can be declared a saint. But as of now, she is declared a servant of God. So we just encourage, I hope that this podcast just kind of inspired some curiosity to learn more about her. And there's so many saints that just talk to us about God's goodness. And this is just one of the many stories. And we invite everyone to read this story because it's so great. It has a message for everyone. And so we're going to just wrap up by reading this letter that she left for her son as a gift. And so we're going to go ahead and listen to her words.
Let's read the letter. For Francesco's first birthday, Chiara searched her mind for a gift that would last. Then the thought came to her of writing him a letter. This letter was her will and testament. Here it is. Dearest Frankie, today you are 1 year old, and we asked ourselves what gift we could give you that would last through the years. And so we decided to write you a letter. You were a great gift in our life because you helped us to look beyond our human limits. When the doctors wished to frighten us, your life, so fragile, gave us the strength to go forward. For the little I have understood during these years, I can tell you only that love is the center of our life. Because we are born from an act of love, we live in order to love and in order to be loved, and we die in order to know the true love of God. The goal of our life is to love and to always be ready to learn how to love others, as only God is able to teach you. Love consumes you, but it is beautiful to die consumed, precisely as a candle that goes out only after it reaches its goal. Whatever you do will have sense only if you see it in terms of eternal life. If you truly love, you shall be aware of it by knowing that nothing truly belongs to you, because everything is a gift. We loved your brother and sister, Maria and Davide, and we have loved you, knowing that you were not ours, that you were not for us. And so it must be with everything in life. Everything that you have does not belong to you. This is so you can make it bear fruit. Do not ever be discouraged, my son. God does not ever take anything away from you. If he takes something from you, it is only because he wishes to give you so much more. Thanks to Maria and Davide, we are more in love than ever with eternal life, and we have stopped being afraid of death. Therefore, God has taken from us in order to give us a bigger heart and to be open to receiving eternity during this earthly life. At Assis, I fell in love with the joy of the consecrated brothers and sisters who were living their belief in providence. So then I also asked the Lord for this grace of which they spoke, in order to believe in this providence, this Father who does not let you lack anything. And then Father Vito, helped us to walk believing in this promise. We married with nothing, putting God in first place, and believing in the love that asked us to take this great step. We were never disappointed. We always had a house and much more than what was ever necessary. You are named Francis precisely because St. Francis changed our life, and we hope that he will also be an example for you. It is beautiful to have some examples in life that remind you that a person can demand the maximum of happiness already here on earth, with God as a guide. We know that you are special and that you have a great mission. The Lord has wanted you from all time, and he will show you the path to follow if you open up your heart to him. Trust in him. It is worth the pain. Mama Chiara and Papa Enrico.
Servant of God, Chiara, please intercede for us that we may have this joy in suffering, that we may see suffering in light of eternity, for making it home to heaven is what matters at the end of the day. May we allow God to use this pain to work in us, to purify us, and help us to allow God to love us and for us to learn to love God back. Please pray for us, and we ask all this in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen. Thank you guys for joining us. We see you next time.
Thank you.